Today, we're going to take a look deep inside the human brain. We're going to explore the actual architecture of how it processes trauma. What happens neurologically when a memory stops being a memory and becomes, well, a kind of prison. And most importantly, how the brain can be rewired for healing.
This quote, it really just gets to the absolute heart of it, doesn't it? We tend to think of memories as things that happened in the past. But for someone with PTSD, that traumatic memory isn't in the past at all. On a brain level, it's a present tense threat, completely frozen in time, and it's ready to replay without any warning.
And this is probably the most crucial thing to understand right from the start. PTSD is not a character flaw. It is not a sign of weakness. It's a physiological injury. It is a fundamental rewiring of your brain's threat detection system. The very instincts that fought to keep you alive during danger, well, they become a cage after the danger is gone.
And just to give you a sense of scale, this is not some niche issue. We're talking about over 300 million people affected across the globe. So understanding the mechanics of how this works isn't just some academic thing. It's absolutely vital for tackling a massive health challenge.
So why can't someone with PTSD just get over it? You hear that a lot, right? Well, the answer has nothing to do with willpower. It's about mechanics. It's about how trauma literally breaks the brain's filing system for memories.
Okay, so here's how it's supposed to work. Your hippocampus, think of it as the brain's librarian. It takes an experience, it puts a nice little timestamp on it, and it files it away on a shelf labeled the past. But during an intensely traumatic event, a massive flood of stress hormones like cortisol just overwhelms the system. It basically shuts the librarian down. So the memory never gets filed. Instead, it gets trapped, unprocessed in the amygdala, which is the brain's smoke detector, as raw, unfiltered sensory data. There's no timestamp. So to the brain, it is always happening right now.
And this famous quote just illustrates the result perfectly. Because that memory is stored as raw data, it doesn't exist as a neat story you can tell. It exists as bodily sensations, terrifying sounds, fragmented images. This is why a flashback isn't remembering something, it's re-experiencing it. The body is literally reliving the event because the brain cannot tell the difference between then and now.
So this broken memory system, it creates a pretty devastating consequence. The brain's alarm system gets stuck in the on position. It leads to this state of constant, and I mean constant, exhausting alert.
Seriously, just imagine for a second living in a house where the fire alarm is blaring 24/7. That's it. That constant, grinding sense of danger, that's the daily reality for millions of people living with this.
So this state has a name. It's called hypervigilance. The amygdala, that smoke detector, it just starts seeing threats everywhere. A car backfiring suddenly sounds exactly like gunfire. A crowded room feels like a combat zone. Now normally, your prefrontal cortex, think of it as your brain's rational brake pedal, would step in and say, hey, amygdala, calm down, it's just a car. But in PTSD, brain scans actually show that the connection between these two areas gets weaker. The brake pedal's broken.
And the cost to the body is just immense. This is not just psychological, it is deeply physiological. The body is just swimming in stress hormones, stuck in a permanent state of fight or flight. This leads to profound exhaustion. It wrecks your sleep. I mean, how can you sleep if your brain is screaming that you're not safe? And over time, it just wears the whole system down.
So what keeps this state of high alert going? Well, the answer is triggers. And they can seem completely random and out of nowhere, but they're actually deeply, deeply rooted in the traumatic experience itself.
See, during the trauma, your amygdala wasn't just recording the main threat. It was recording everything. The smells in the air, the quality of the light, the sounds way off in the background, every little piece of sensory data. So later on, any one of those details can act as an unconscious trigger, activating the very same neural pathways as the original event. It's like you're living in a world that's been booby-trapped by your own memories.
But why? Why do two people go through the same event, but only one develops PTSD? It's not about who's stronger or weaker. It has nothing to do with that. It's a really complex mix of neurobiology and context. Things like your genetic predispositions, any past trauma, the specific nature of the event, and, this is a big one, the social support you get right after. All of these things determine your neurological vulnerability.
Okay, so we've explored the architecture of the injury. Now let's shift gears and talk about the architecture of healing, because the science here is incredibly helpful. And that's because the brain, it is not static. It can and it does change.
So that's the big question, right? Can the brain heal itself from something like this? The answer is a resounding yes, and it's all thanks to something called neuroplasticity.
That's just a fancy word for the brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself by forming new connections. Healing from trauma isn't just a nice idea. It's a very real neurological process of rewiring.
So, the goal of good trauma therapy is, at its core, pretty logistical. It's all about helping the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus finally do the job they couldn't do when the event was happening. By safely, carefully approaching the traumatic material, the brain can finally process all that raw sensory data, put it in context, and correctly file it away as a memory that is over, a memory that belongs in the past.
And this is not a metaphor. I mean this quite literally. Brain scans taken before and after successful trauma therapy show real, tangible changes. That hyperactive amygdala, it calms down. The connection to the prefrontal cortex, the brake pedal, it gets stronger. The hippocampus can actually regain volume. Recovery gets written into the brain's very structure.
And I think it's so important to remember this. It doesn't matter if the trauma happened yesterday or 50 years ago. Neuroplasticity is a lifelong feature of being human. The potential to rewire, to refile that memory, and to reclaim your present moment, it is always there.
Ultimately, when you understand the neuroscience of it all, it leads you to this one simple but really profound truth. The symptoms of trauma are not a reflection of who you are. They are evidence of what your brain and body have survived. That response was an adaptation, a testament to its desperate fight to live. And the path to recovery, it's all about integrating that past so it no longer hijacks your present.